Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was the Red X. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Jump City. Orochimaru stood atop the tallest building in the city, a sly smirk across his lips as he looked into the distance. He then looked up when he saw the clouds, moving outwards, as if to escape something evil at their source. Lightning arched and cracked from cloud to cloud, leaving trails of electricity flying over them all. Chuckling lightly, the snake-eyed man crossed his arms with an amused smirk across his lips. Ah, I knew you could do it, Naruto-kun, but even I could never have imagined it would be so soon. Orochimaru thought to himself with an evil-sounding chuckle echoing from his lips. Cold seem we are no longer the only Bijuu in this dimension, Akibi. Orochimaru said to no one before laughing lightly to himself. Closing his eyes, Orochimaru then reached out his senses, attempting to find the beast that he was sure Naruto was becoming. However, when he did, a shiver ran down the length of his spine. That was no normal chakra, he felt. This looks to be a most interesting adventure from now on. Orochimaru mused aloud, then grinned sinisterly as he jumped into the air, only to vanish in a trail of fire. Watchtower. Dr. Fate suddenly felt a powerful surge and had to stop in one of the watchtower's halls, a cold sweat forming at his brow. Such awesome power. The helmeted man thought to himself before quickly making his way through the watchtower and coming out in the control room. Typing on the control console rapidly, Dr. Fate tried to pinpoint what he was feeling, but whatever it was, the energy source wasn't reading on the watchtower's sensors. Then it's either a natural form of energy, or something radically different to anything else we've encountered. The man realized before feeling out with his powers, and started to pinpoint its location. Still, if I can find it, perhaps I can also find a satellite to get me a photo of the area it's in. Dr. Fate mused to himself before noticing a call coming from Jason Blood, thus patched him through as he continued his work. Yes, Jason. What do you need? Dr. Fate questioned even as he tried to pinpoint the energy signature's exact location. Do you feel it? A slightly panicked Jason questioned, and Fate halted, and then frowned deeply. Jason was known to be calm and collected at nearly all times. The magnitude of anything that could cause him to panic, as he obviously wasn't to be taken lightly. If you're referring to the massive surge of power I just sensed, then yes, but where is it? That's the question I want answered for the moment. Dr. Fate replied as he continued to try and locate the position of the power source. However, oddly enough, it was almost like it was coming from the entirety of planet Earth, as if something was trying to siphon off all of the world's energy somehow. That's not what I mean. This power, it's almost as if it wishes to crush or constrain anything with a demonic heritage, including Etrigan. Jason said while trying not to sound as panicked as he was feeling, albeit he knew he was also failing miserably. However, Dr. Fate stopped at that tidbit of information. Dr. Fate paused before rubbing his chin, and started to switch the search parameters. This time he set it for a more celestial energy, and widened his eyes when he saw an enormous surge of it in the forest of Jump City. However, stranger still was the mass of demonic energy that seemed to be mixing with it. By the creator, what is this? Dr. Fate wondered to himself before zooming in on the centermost position of the cloud of raw power. However, what he saw caused him to give pause for but a brief moment. What he was seeing was what looked like a tornado of some kind, and in the very center of it was what looked like a beast with numerous tails flowing from its backside. Jason, do you think you could investigate this phenomena for me? Dr. Fate questioned the scarlet-haired man, and could hear the groan that Jason let out. Unfortunately no, at this point I'd be afraid of something happening to me if I changed into Etrigan, and possibly even if I didn't change. There's no telling what it could do to me if I were to get any closer to it. This energy, whatever it is, seems to have a very adverse effect on demons. Jason replied as calmly as he could, though he felt like finding the quickest way of running from the power he was feeling that he could. Sighing for a moment, Dr. Fate considered his options when he realized Etrigan wouldn't be going to investigate. There are a few people I could send, but we don't know what this is, and it doesn't feel like a threat to anything well besides demons, so what is it? Dr. Fate wondered to himself while clicking his tongue, mulling over finding someone to investigate, doing so himself, or he could always just take someone with him to find out what was going on down there. Force. Clone A and B made their way towards the center of the massive crater. Raven still riding on Clone B's back as they came to a halt. Moving slightly to the side, Raven could see a thin swirling tornado was all that was left of the wind they'd seen before. Above the tornado was the full moon, its light shining down upon them all. Why did you stop? Raven questioned, only to gasp as both clones flipped back as a blast of lightning suddenly ripped its way through the ground. That's why. Clone A replied flatly as he narrowed his eyes on the figure that lay within the thin tornado. A deep growl echoed from it, and Raven looked over Clone B's shoulder, her eyes widening. Within the tornado was a creature, its head looking towards the moon, 5 long tails slowly twisting and flicking behind it. Its ears were slightly long, about half the length of the Kyuubi's, and its entire form was completely silhouetted from view. Well, what is that? The 5 tails was absorbed into the Jito Meizo. Clone B wondered aloud while Clone A shrugged only for them to stiffen as one of the beast's ears suddenly twitched towards him. It stood on 4 legs, all 5 of its tails fanning out behind it when Clone A noticed something strange. Cursing lightly, Clone A moved back slowly, while strange bubbles formed at the beast's tailbone, before it quickly formed into another tail. When the tail formed, the beast increased in size as well, growing to stand at about 5-foot tail well on all 4s. Shit, get Card-chan to safety. Clone A ordered while grabbing a pair of kunai, causing Clone B to look at him as if he were crazy. What about you? Clone B demanded, and a frown crossed Clone A's features as the strange creature crouched down, and an echoing growl came to his ears. I'll try to hold this thing off for as long as I can. All you need to do is protect his fine Jinx, and then protect her and Card-chan. Clone A ordered while forming a pair of chakra sabers from his twin kunai, Clone B looking at him in shock for a moment. I said go. Clone A ordered angrily, and Clone B blinked before nodding his head and running for dear life, as Clone A turned back to the beast, and twisted his chakra sabers in hand for a moment. Alright, I'm not sure what you are, but you really picked the wrong place to appear. Clone A stated simply while lunging at the beast, only for it to zip to the side with unimaginable speed, and then slow down and launch itself at the clone. Cursing, Clone A used a quick Hawurimi no Jutsu to escape, leaving the now 6-tailed beast to crash into it. Rearing his arms back, Clone A then sliced with both of his chakra sabers, sending 2 Kagenjin blasts straight for the beast. The blasts fused in midair to form an X that grew closer and closer to the beast, only for it to crouch and jump in the air, and then strangely enough, it jumped a second time, flipping over the X blast before landing behind it with a roar. Okay, that was new. Clone A noted to himself while the creature then shook its head and growled as another bubble formed at the base of its tailbone. The bubble quickly formed into a 7th tail, now growing to 5.5 feet tall on all 4s. Clone A's eyes widened in shock as witnessed it slam a paw into the ground, a miniature earthquake rocking the ground, and knocking Clone A off his feet. Shaking his head, Clone A then widened his eyes as the beast opened its jaws. Dozens of bubbles began forming before it, while its tails arched towards its head. Oh shit. He cried out loudly while lunging out of the way as the bubbles slowly formed together into a solid sphere. Biting down on the ball, the creature braced itself as its body nearly plowed into the ground, and then turned and opened its mouth. Amari. The 7-tailed beast cried out loudly as a massive beam of raw chakra rocketed towards Clone A. Thinking quickly, Clone A grinned and quickly dug underground, just as the blast would have hit him. The blast tore a sizable chunk out of the landscape, the 7-tailed beast narrowing its eyes. It then heard something and looked down, only for Clone A to rise out of the ground with an uppercut to its chin. Flying backwards, the beast flipped in midair to land on its paws, while Clone A crawled out of the ground and formed a familiar T-shaped hand seal. Kagebunshin no Jutsu. The clone exclaimed while creating several clones around her, as they all faced down the now very angry beast. Said beast roaring out as it crouched down, then quickly lunged forward with unmatchable speed. Growling furiously, the beast then swung its tails, slicing the nearly blade-like appendages clean through every clone in its path, before causing 5 of them to lunge forward for Clone A himself. Eyes wide for only a moment, Clone A moved back as the 5 tails formed into a mock hand that tried to grab him. When the hand missed, the beast itself lunged out of the hand, and made to bite the unlucky clone. Using a quick Hawurimi no Jutsu, Clone A avoided becoming kibble as the beast bit into the boulder, its 7 tails ripping into and then through the boulder, turning it into rubble before his very eyes. I am so dead. The clone couldn't help but whisper to himself, while the tailed beast suddenly began to shake, another series of bubbles forming at its tailbone. Oh no, please not another one. Clone A said to himself while backing away when an 8th tail formed from its tailbone. The now 8-tailed beast then howled up into the night sky before crouching as sparks arched along its entire body. Growling and snarling, the beast's 8 tails fanned out behind it, while Clone A quickly made a T-shaped hand seal yet again, not taking any chances this time. Taiju Kagebunshin no Jutsu. The blonde cried out as over 100 of him were formed this time, and then gulped audibly as he and the others watched the strange tailed beast. Got a plan? The clone closest to Clone A asked, and he shook his head as the beast then lifted its head up and opened its mouth wide. Amatsu Mikabashi. August Star of Heaven. The beast cried out as an endlessly dark essence flowed out of its open jaws, and a cloud darkness began to rise up into the sky. What the hell? One of the many clones demanded loudly as the sky was soon covered in darkness, not even the light of the stars or the full moon penetrating its depths. When that happened, Clone A looked around as all became dark, only their chakra sabers giving off even the barest hint of light, while the tailed beast had vanished. This really doesn't bode well for us boys. Clone A noted quietly to himself until he noticed several screams as his clones were torn apart one by one. Shit, figure out some way to make it visible again and fast. Clone A ordered of his own clones, and they all agreed with him immediately, as they tried to think of a way to see the thing. We should try channeling chakra into our eyes. That trick always let us see in the dark before. One called out only for another to grunt in annoyance, as it had long turned off its chakra sabers, fully aware the beast was tracking them with those glowing blades. Not a good idea. That only works in low light conditions. That beast eliminated all light sources save our own. And stop using your damn chakra sabers already. The damn thing is probably following our chakra sabers to attack us. The clone ordered, though Clone A wondered why it sounded so much like Shikamaru for only a moment before turning his chakra saber off and placing the kunai into his kunai case. Okay, does anyone have any other ideas? Another clone demanded, only to scream out before the other clones heard a popping sound. Come on, we talk, it finds us. We attack, it finds us. We do anything, it finds us. Where the hell did this damn thing find this technique? No, seriously, I like it. Another of the clones wondered aloud, and Clone A slapped his face as he wondered why all their clones had such strange personality quirks. These dope clones are going to get us all mauled, and I can't afford any more chakra to make them. Though I will admit this is a particularly useful technique, and it might actually be worth learning. Clone A admitted to himself as he closed his eyes and concentrated on feeling for the other clones around him. Unless we want to be completely annihilated out here, we need to regroup and figure out a way to see this damn thing before it finds us. Clone A thought to himself as he soon found one of his clones, and both breathed sighs of relief. Can you tell where that biju thing is? Clone A asked in a hushed whisper, still wishing he could see, as the strange beast was silent as the grave. Not really, this darkness. We need a way to make that thing visible again. Got any ideas? Clone A asked. The clone clicked its tongue for a moment before nodding its head. This one, but we'll need a diversion for it to work. The other clone replied even as they heard another clone as it was destroyed in the distance. Right, and that should be oh so easy. Clone A noted sarcastically, and the other clone grunted before grumbling under his breath. However, the sound of another clone popping out of existence much closer to them causing both clones to forget any annoyance and focus on the here and now. Right, I'll go figure out some way to distract it then. Clone A agreed, never noticing as the other clone put a chakra string on him as he walked away. Hey, you're doing well enough already. If I'm right, this thing can't see chakra, so it'll follow that string either to you or me. Then either way we do it, we can use my idea on it. The other clone noted to itself, and then sighed when he heard the sound of the beast heading towards him. Oh, I meant a goose. The clone muttered to itself even as the beast lunged at it, and snapped its jaws onto him. This instantly caused Clone A's eyes to widen, and a grin comes onto his face as he turned around, following the chakra string to his source. Got ya. The clone thought to itself as he lunged forward, forming several hand seals before lunging up and bring a hand down on top of the beast's back. Hearing it roar, Clone A quickly flipped off of it, just as the seal he planted on the beast started to glow brightly, revealing the beast's location. Twisting around, the beast tried to find the source of the light, only to roar out in frustration, while Clone A grinned. Finally, he called out while forming Rasengan in one hand, and then lunged at the beast, slamming the swirling sphere into the beast's face, and sending it flying back. Flipping in midair, the beast landed on its feet before howling loudly, the darkness opening up and allowing the moon to shine through once more. Grunting as the light came back, Clone A blinked several times while his remaining clones did much the same. Oi, that was so not fun. One of the clones noted while rubbing his eyes, the darkness that the beast had summoned slowly fading away completely, while the tailed beast roared loudly. Yeah, well, right now I'm just glad that we can see again. Clone A stated while widening his eyes as another series of bubbles formed at the beast's tailbone, then quickly formed into a ninth tail. Oh shit. One of the other clones said with wide eyes, summing up the thoughts of its fellow clones nicely. The now nine-tailed beast then roared loudly, however didn't grow as it had before, instead its body morphed slightly, wind-shaped finials flowing off of his shoulders to point back. I don't remember any other nine-tailed beasts besides Kyuubi. How about you boys? One of the clones asked while backing away, and Clone A narrowed his eyes as he saw the beast slowly open a pair of eyes. His mouth falling open as he realized it had been fighting without being able to see them this entire time. We have bigger problems. This damn thing is going to be one hell of a lot more aggressive soon enough. Clone A stated before looking to a clone at its side and pulled out a Hiraishin kunai. Let's see if we can put this stupid thing down now before it tears us all a new one. He ordered, and all the clones threw a hail of Hiraishin kunai into the air, while they came down on top of the nine-tailed beast. Roaring loudly, the beast crouched back even as the first hail of kunai came down on it, snarling as it watched the clones started vanishing in yellow flashes. A cruel grin, then started crossing its features as they did so. Before the first clone to reappear could even blink, one of the beast's 9 tails lashed out, slicing clean through it. The next one met a similar fate, and still as even more clones appeared they all found the beast's tails waiting, slicing into and through them like sharp swords. Roaring loudly, the beast had jumped up and spun around, fanning out its tails and causing them to spin in a circle, cleaving every clone near it in half, while it came out on all fours with a roar. As the last few clones started to reappear, several of them quickly jumped off of other clones, and out of the way as the beast sliced into them with its razor-sharp claws. Clone A gaping as he watched the spectacle, his few remaining clones quickly moving back towards him. Well, looks like that was a bust. Clone A noted, no small amount of awe in his tone as the beast then crouched down once more, another series of bubbles forming at its tailbone, and his eyes widening further than before. "Oh Kami-sama, please no." The clone pleaded for naught as a 10th tail formed from the beast's tailbone, its eyes snapping open at long last. However, that was just the beginning as the beast lifted its head and howled out into the night. Darkness creeping off of the beast's form and into the ground before spreading out from it. The beast was as such, finally revealed, its form no longer a silhouette, though the clones actually wished it was. The beast was now a 6-foot tail wolf when on all fours, its ears half the length of the Kyuubi's own, its teeth and claws looked like the purest of ivory marble, its fur resembled the deepest obsidian black one could imagine, with orange-red streaks along its sides. A mane of black fur flowing from the back of its head, while wind-shaped finials flowed from its shoulders, as well as it forming into a pair of mock horns from its forehead. Orange-red marks were positioned over its eyes in a similar way to Naruto's Sage Mode, and 3 stripes like lightning bolts on its cheeks finished the only other coloring it had save for its grave eyelid eyes, ones with a dilated pupil and ripple-like pattern forming outwards. Can we run and scream now?" One of the clones suddenly asked, his eyes wide in a combination of shock and extreme fear, upon seeing the familiar eyes. "Love to, but we can't let this thing attack Kara-chan or anyone else, it might just kill them and be done with it." Clone A reminded while the 10-tailed beast then allowed its tails to fan out as it closed its eyes. "What now?" One of the clones wondered before gaping as a ball of chakra formed at each of the beast's tails. "Yubi Rasengan. 10-tailed swirling sphere." The beast cried out before lunging its tails into the ground. Looking all around, the clones then scattered as the tails ripped out of the ground below them, twisting and swerving in all directions. Gritting his teeth, Clone A rolled out of the way of one of the tails and flipped over another, just as the tails connected with several of the remaining clones, destroying them instantly, while the tails soon returned to the newly formed Jubi, fanning out behind it as it glared at the clones angrily. "Boy, we haven't even touched this thing, and it's nearly wiped out all of us." Clone A grumbled to himself only to groan as the strange beast started to shake before roaring out loud as a field of chakra formed around it, then condensed into a familiar bone-like armor. This armor started with a white skull mask with an X cut out of it, a long series of spinal plates down the middle of its back, before branching out into 10 spines along its tails. Wind-shaped greaves adorned each of its legs, and 6 Tomo-shaped beads formed around its neck like a Magatama necklace. Digging its sharp claws into the ground, the tailed beast then crouched low, while Clone A looked to the remaining clones. "Boys, we're officially out of options, time to go for the big one," Clone A stated, and 3 of the remaining clones grimaced for a moment. "Oh man, but that's seriously going to drain our remaining reserves," one of them reminded, and Clone A gave the one that spoke a glare. "Alright, but I do this under extreme protest," the clone then said as he and 2 of the remaining clones got as far from the Biju as they could. As it did, Clone A turned to the remaining clones with him, and crossed his arms with a deep frown on his face. "Alright men, now all we have to do is distract that thing until the others finish," he stated, and several of the clones sighed, already knowing they most likely wouldn't be coming back from this alive. "Been nice knowing me," one of the clones quipped quietly before the mass of clones charged forward, towards the Jubi. Narrowing its eyes, the wolf then spread out its legs as they approached, a cruel grin spreading over its face as they did. Lunging forward, the clones all prepared different attacks. Some were Sengen, others their chakra sabers, and one even had a Raisen shuriken ready. However, it was all for naught as the beast roared aloud, its eyes glaring at them. "Shinra Tensei. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god," the beast exclaimed, Clone A's eyes bolting open as he and the majority of the clones were sent flying away by an invisible force. Cursing as he and the clones were sent flying, Clone A threw Horatian kunai to the ground, while grabbing 2 of the clones, then used the jutsu and brought them with him, as the other clones slammed into the side of the crater, before all of them went out with a puff of smoke. "Crap, where did it learn to do that?" one of the clones wondered while holding its head, Clone A only wondering what it would do next. The beast then roared once more, and Clone A yelled as he and the 2 of the clones were pulled towards it this time. "Shit. I had to ask." "Bancho Tenin. Heavenly attraction of all creation," the beast exclaimed with an evil grin stretched over his features. "I hate this. It's like fighting a healthy version of pain," one of the clones noted as they were pulled closer and closer to the beast, said creature spreading its tails out before swinging them as the clones got close enough. Cursing, Clone A managed to twist out of the way of the creature's many swings with its tails. Flipping off of one of the tails, Clone A then widened his eyes as it lifted its head and opened its mouth, forming numerous bubbles of raw chakra into the air. "Crap, not again," he exclaimed while using a Kawarimi as it fired the blast without eating it first. "Takuho. Holocaine cannon," the rough demonic voice exclaimed as dozens of balls of energy went flying into the air, only to curve in the air and fall back towards the earth. Looking up, Clone cursed while dodging and weaving around the dozens of blasts, even as they tore chunk after chunk of the ground apart. Flipping back as the final blast hit, Clone let out several panting breaths before falling to his knees, while the Jubi merely shook itself off and turned towards him, Rinnegan eyes glaring towards him evilly. Naruto's mind. The blonde was currently in an unimaginable amount of pain. His hands were clawing at his eyes as lightning and wind flowed all around his form. Kid, stop thrashing about like an idiot and get control of yourself. Kusanagi ordered in a hiss while Naruto struggled with the power that had forced its way inside of him. Ugh, easy for you to say. This shit fucking hurts. Naruto shouted aloud, his hair having taken on an odd style, his bangs now pointing upwards like horns. Yes, it hurts, I get it already. But what do you expect it to do to you? It's raw power inside you that you've never mastered. You have to take control of it, or it will take control of you. The Kusanagi retorted while Naruto grit his teeth and tried to concentrate on anything but the pain of having what felt like lightning flow through every nerve in his body. Come now, hurry. If you don't take control, the power will, and you could very well hurt those you care about in such a state. The sword shouted at the blonde, making his eyes snap open and gnash his teeth together while slowly sitting up. Had he been able, he would have seen a change to his eyes, namely that they had completely turned a familiar gray violet color. His pupil is dilated, and ripple-like patterns stretched out from the center of each of his eyes. Gritting his now fanged teeth and clenching his clawed hands, the blonde then narrowed his eyes. I wouldn't let that happen no matter what. The blonde growled out as he slowly started to push himself up to his feet, Kusanagi egging him on. Yes, rise. Rise up, Naruto. Take control of it. This power is yours, do not allow it to take your body for its own. The voice ordered while Naruto grit his teeth as a shadowy figure formed behind him, one with 6 glowing Tomo-shaped beads around its neck, what looked like horns on its head, and a pair of Rinnegan eyes. Remaining completely unaware of the figure, Naruto roared out, purple-black chakra exploding from his body, as he threw his arms out to his sides. Instantly, the Jubi was thrown from his body, and Naruto fell forward, the wolf rolling along the ground before quickly getting up and running off, ramming through a gate and up yet another staircase. Crater. Clone watched as the Jubi walked towards him and looked behind, noticing his brothers had finally finished their last resort. Finally. The blonde clone muttered under his breath while 2 of the clones poofed out of existence, and the third one held a massive version of the Rasengan in one hand. Later. Clone then shouted as he used a Kawarimi no Jutsu on the sole remaining clone, causing it to grin, as the Jubi glared at it furiously. So long, Jubi. The clone shouted while throwing its arm forward with the massive jutsu. Diadama Rasengan. The clone shouted while shoving the attack into the creature, only to pop out of existence when it was finished, Clone groaning lightly while watching as the attack pushed the Jubi back. Finally. He groaned out only to whiten his eyes, as the Jubi suddenly stopped and then dug its paws into the ground, Clone gaping, as the attack was somehow only before it. No way. He whispered, only to gape as it then grinned darkly. Izanami. It cried out once more, vanishing in a swirl of black chakra, and then suddenly reappeared to the side of the massive crater. Gaping for a moment, Clone then watched as the attack ripped into and then through the side of the crater, digging all the way through it where it exploded over a mile away, and water started to flow from the new river, and into the crater to form a lake. Our best attack, and it was completely useless. He muttered to himself while watching as the Jubi started to shake its body, before it then made its way towards him. Clone sighed as it did, and then frowned when it saw an evil grin spread across the Jubi's face. Of course. He muttered while slowly getting up to his feet, only to raise a brow when the Jubi suddenly halted. The beast then roared loudly, the shockwave from which sent Clone flying back. Cursing lightly, the clone used chakra to brace himself on the ground, and saw the Jubi start to thrash around. Watching on in confusion, Clone then saw the Jubi rear its head back and halt, its eyes seemingly focused upon the moon. Dropping its paws back to the ground, the Jubi then closed its eyes before unleashing a great howl towards the heavens. As it did so, purple-black chakra formed around its form, soon shrinking down, then swirling around and condensing itself down into a solid black sphere. Blinking for a moment, Clone got back to his feet and rubbed his head, while making his way towards the sphere as it dissipated from view. No way. Clone whispered when he saw Naruto now lying sprawled out where the sphere and by proxy the Jubi had once been. Slowly walking over to the blonde, Clone looked at him for a moment before picking him up and throwing him over his shoulder. However, as he did, he noticed thunder roar, and looked up to find dark clouds forming above him. I just bet the boss is doing this without noticing. Clone reasoned while narrowing his eyes on the sky, then frowned deeply as he realized the implications of Naruto's new powers. Slade better watch his back. If the boss truly does possess the Rinnegan, he's going to annihilate him utterly. Clone mused inwardly while looking to the dark sky, then turned around and started to limp towards the forest. Groaning and holding his side as he felt phantom pains from the dozens of clones that had been destroyed, Clone rubbed his face tiredly. I'd better get out of here before someone comes to investigate what just happened out here. Clone A muttered to himself before looking around their battleground, grimacing when he saw the devastation they had created. Oh yeah, and before someone wonders who made the new lake. He added to himself before quickly running away, Naruto thrown over his shoulder as he did so. However, at the edge of the crater stood Dr. Fate, a slight frown across his face as he watched the majority of that little exhibition. That was quite an impressive display. Dr. Fate noted as he looked to the devastation that the blonde-haired ex-shinobi was able to cause. And that transformation was also interesting, but still, he can control gravity as well as cause massive amounts of damage him. For now I'll leave him be, but should he prove too much of a threat, I believe we'll have to take measures. Dr. Fate mused to himself before teleporting back to the watchtower. Unaware of a raven that had also watched the whole thing, only to vanish in a plume of smoke. Naruto's mind. The blonde groaned as he slowly got up, then gripped his skull, groaning as an influx of information from numerous destroyed clones hit him. Wonderful, I feel like a train just hit me, and my body seems to have changed into a jubi, thanks to that stupid wolf. The blonde grumbled while pushing himself up to his feet, and then tried to regain his balance. Rubbing his face for a moment as he tried to sort through the information from the clones, Naruto stopped when he remembered one of them. Amatsu Mikobashi. But he's a kami of evil and stars weird. The blonde muttered under his breath as he sifted through the memories. Indeed, it seemed that your subconscious mind took control of your body in that strange form, much like it did when you turned into that beast thing a few weeks ago. Kusanagi noted and caused Naruto to look towards his back for a moment, before inwardly deciding it'd be worth finding out anything he could. Oh really? Then I suppose you also know how'd I changed like that in the first place? The blonde-haired teen demanded of his sword while crossing his arms, and the Kusanagi was silent for a few moments. Actually, I do have a few ideas. You see, master, due to containing the Kyuubi no Yuko's yang chakra, your own yin chakra is significantly more potent. This means, in effect, your specialty with shape transformations is because you don't have enough yang chakra to do most clone techniques or others that require spiritual energy to work. Although some of the Kyuubi's own yang chakra has been purified and added to your own reserves, it is still a significant decrease from what one would normally have with your chakra capacity. The Kusanagi explained, and Naruto raised a brow and then sighed while rubbing his face. In English this time, please. Naruto grumbled aloud and heard the Kusanagi sigh out in annoyance as he thought over the easiest way to explain it. Very well then. The armor you've been creating as of late is a possible due to your high amount of yin chakra, just like your mother could create chakra chains. Now then, when that wolf jumped inside of you, it manipulated the overabundant yin chakra inside you to change your body into a wolf as well, though I don't know exactly how it did that, mass darkness or the teleportation technique. Kusanagi explained to his master, Naruto frowning as he rubbed his chin for a moment, then narrowed his eyes when he saw the broken gate that the wolf busted down, and the stairway beyond it, annoying him greatly. When I get my hands on that damn wolf, I'm going to skin it alive. The blonde growled out while lunging at the gate, subconsciously forming several plates of bone armor on his left arm. Slamming his arm into a portion of the gate as he passed it, the blonde ran up the length of the stairs, eyes narrowed dangerously, twin Rinnegan glaring out from where his azure eyes had once been. Behind the blonde, Itachi walked onto the platform calmly before looking to where he'd gone. He's got quite the temper. Itachi mumbled as he walked towards the broken gate calmly. As he did, a familiar silhouetted figure walked beside of him, his own Rinnegan eyes looking to Itachi. Should he allow his temper to run unchecked, it will get the best of him in the coming battle. The man, once known as Pain, noted, Itachi merely humming quietly as they walked across the bridge and past the destroyed gate. True, but I have a feeling all will be well for him, Leader Sama. Itachi replied, eyes closed as he and Pain both made their way up the stairs as well, their presence still unknown to the blonde-haired teen. Gotham. That man was working in the back of, preferring the solitude there, to any chance of meeting up with Zatanna again. He still cared for his old friend, but he honestly didn't like her input. Frowning to himself as he looked over the compiled information on Trigun and his resurrection, the Dark Knight considered all the angles that the demon could enter their world from. Added to that, he was also looking for information on an Eastern demon of equal power, attempting to do the same. Thus far, his data showed only one method Trigun could enter that wouldn't force him back to hell in an hour. As for his search for the identity of the Eastern demon, that was going much slower, and he was turning up less and less. Besides being a high A class, with power over fire, and the ability to make a demonic barrier, he didn't have enough information on what it could possibly be out of a long list of mythical monsters and demons. Unfortunately, demonic barriers were a very common trait among the upper and even mid-tier demons and Eastern demons, as it seemed they used them a vast majority of the time, mostly to keep themselves from being found. He was currently looking over demons with some kind of fire abilities. Kitsune, Nekomata, and several others all had that kind of power, however, making it tedious at best. Thus his own search had nearly turned up nil, and he was certain that Jason was also having problems finding the right demonic entity. We don't have enough information on the demoner's abilities. Finding it until we do will be near impossible, and by then it could already be too late. Batman mused to himself with a frown as he glared at the screen of his computer, only to turn when he felt someone was nearby. Quite the intriguing place you have here. Frowning at the voice, Batman turned around and stood up, eyes narrowed on the intruder. Although I wonder if you have enough toys or not. Slade wondered aloud as he leaned back into guardrail, his arms crossed over his chest. Deathstroke. Batman growled out lowly while glaring at the masked man, as he leaned forward and folded his arms behind his back. A pleasure to see you again as well, Batman. Slade replied with an incline of his head towards the Dark Knight. How did you find this place? Batman demanded while allowing his cape to cover the majority of his body, and Slade chuckled darkly. I can create nano-machines that can destroy someone from the inside out, make an neurotoxin that can induce a pseudo-realistic hallucination, a suit of armor that gives me overall control of its wearer, and even a machine that can harness the very power of nature itself. And yet you find it odd that I can find this place? Slade questioned with a raised brow, and Batman merely narrowed his eyes onto the masked madman. What do you want? Batman then questioned flatly, and Slade walked towards the Dark Knight silently. What do I want? A great many things actually, however for now, I have certain interests in your ongoing investigation. Slade replied and quickly moved one arm to catch a kick from the Dark Knight. Do you always attack your guests? Slade wondered aloud, and a deep frown crossed Batman's lips. Only the uninvited ones. Batman replied while throwing a fist at Slade's face, the mercenary blocking with one hand and chuckling lightly. Yes, and I'd expect no less from the legendary Dark Knight. Slade admitted before backing up, Batman ducking into a crouch while raising a brow when he felt something in his hand. Do you really intend to try and stop Trigon? He's nearly invincible, you know you'll most likely fail if you try. Slade noted coldly, and Batman narrowed his eyes on the masked madman dangerously. That's still only nearly. Even if only slim, the chance is still there. Batman replied simply, and Slade turned away from Batman, arms crossed behind his back as a portal of fire formed. I'm counting on it. Slade whispered while vanishing into the portal, Batman rising up and looking to his hand, narrowing his eyes when he found a ring of Azar. Turning to look at the spot that Slade had been only a few moments before, Batman clenched his fist on the ring and narrowed his eyes. What's your game this time, Deathstroke? Batman wondered to himself with a frown, then placed the ring into his utility belt so he could return to his work. Titan's Tower. Bad guys beware, there's a new Robin in town. Beast Boy said mostly to himself with a wide grin on his face as he sat on Nightwing's old R-cycle, while Cyborg used a fan to make it look like he was driving it. The Titanium Teen is now dressed like Robin, however where it was too big for Beast Boy, it is too small for him, meaning the suit is stretched across his burly frame. Grinning for a moment, Cyborg then deactivated the fan on his right arm, and quickly pulled his right glove back on. Okay man, my turn. Cyborg stated while trying to push Beast Boy off of the R-cycle so he can get on it. However, as they push and struggle to see who will get to play on the R-cycle, Beast Boy ending up with Cyborg pushing his head down as he pushed the Titanium Teen back, though Cyborg still had one leg over the R-cycle. They both hear their communicators go off. Robin calling Robin. Starfire's voice comes and Beast Boy pulls out his communicator with a wide grin on his face. Robin here. Over. He replies while speaking into the communicator, and Starfire, still dressed up like Robin as well, leans over towards them from the side. No, not you Robin, the other Robin. Starfire said while pointing to Cyborg, distracting the green jester long enough for Cyborg to push him off and hop onto the R-cycle himself. Smirking as he heard Beast Boy grunt as he hit the floor, Cyborg caught the green teen's communicator from midair and spoke into it as well. What's up Robin? He asked while mentally snickering to himself, though was glad that no one was watching how silly they were acting. Putting up the communicator when he was certain that Starfire was not going to continue, Cyborg started to mock ride on the R-cycle. Nearby, however, Starfire dug around in the utility belt she was wearing, and fired a grapple line upwards before riding it up. Meanwhile, Beast Boy tried to move his cape out of his face, while Donna walked into the room and blinked at what she saw. Okay, this is really disturbing. Donna noted while looking around with a raised brow, and Starfire swung slowly over to the Amazonian warrior. Disturbing yet magnificent. Starfire exclaimed while releasing the grapple and falling to the ground lightly. You must join us, friend. I never knew wearing a cape was so much fun. Starfire said while moving around Donna and spreading the cape wide with her arms, the Amazonian shaking her head as she does. It is wonderful to be Robin. The red-haired alien then exclaimed while coming out of a spin and leaning towards one of her newest friends in the tower. Yeah. He has all the best stuff. Cyborg agreed with a grin as he walked over while still riding on the R-cycle. Looking between her two friends, Donna only managed to make an uncomfortable sounding grunt before Beast Boy sidled up as well. Come on, haven't you ever wondered what it'd be like to be Robin? Beast Boy questioned, and Donna frowned as she had sometimes wondered, though she seriously doubted that dressing up like the Boy Wonder would help. You know you want to try it. Beast Boy stated while pointing towards Donna, Cyborg and Starfire looking at her from beside him. Somehow I know I'm going to regret this. Donna thought to herself as she decided to at least humor her three new friends with their little game. Force, next day. Raven and Jinx both looked over the passed out Naruto worriedly. Clone A had returned sometime the night before, only to find that Raven, Jinx, and Clone B had moved to the cave he found the day before due to the heavy rain. Having eventually found them, he had laid out Naruto before promptly passing out against the wall. However, when Raven and Jinx awoke to find Naruto passed out, they instantly went to his side. Thus they had been like this all morning while nearby to them, Clone A was leaning back into a tree and groaning lightly, while Clone B was cooking some breakfast for them. Is he going to be okay? Jinx questioned of Clone A, and he opened one eye before rubbing his face with a tired sigh. Outside, rain was pouring down, completely drenching everything, while lightning flashed and thunder boomed. If the boss really is making that, he must be in one hell of a bad mood. Clone A mused to himself as he looked to the rosette and sighed as she stared at him expectantly. I don't really know right now, but given how high our healing factor is, he should be just fine. The clone replied disinterestedly, while Clone B nodded his head in agreement with his partner. Then what should we do? He's passed out and I haven't been able to wake him up, no matter how much I yell at him. Jinx shouted at the blonde clone, Clone A grunting as he gave her a look, while trying to figure out just how much chakra he had left, and whether or not he was going to need to take a soldier pill. Wait for him to wake up on his own. From what I can tell, he's probably going through our subconscious. Clone A replied while closing his eyes, Clone B rolling his eyes as Jinx frowned towards the clone. As they did that, Raven was looking at the oddity that was Naruto's bangs sticking up like mock horns, then frowned when she felt a strange energy flowing off of him and then into the air. Placing a hand onto the blonde-haired boy's head, Raven slowly opened one of his eyes, only to widen her own at what she saw. Both the iris and sclera of his eye was an odd gray violet in color. His pupil was dilated, with several rings forming a ripple pattern out from the center of his eye. Blinking for a moment, Raven then looked over to Jinx. Frowning when she saw the girl was arguing with Clone A about what they should do with Naruto when they were stuck in the middle of a storm. Rolling her eyes for a moment, Raven bit her lip as she looked back down at the eye for a moment. Sifting through her memories, the girl tried to think if Naruto told her about any kind of eye thing, similar to the one Naruto had now. Let's see now, Naruto mentioned that there were 3 great Jujutsu in his world. First was the Sharingan has redder eyes with 3 tomos circling the dilated pupil. The Byakugan is a pale lavender color that takes up all but a small portion of the eye. And then there was. Raven thought to herself, only for her eyes to widen as she released Naruto's eye and shivered visibly. The Rinnegan. The girl whispered to herself, the shouting between Jinx and Clone A drowning it out, while Clone B shook his head, wondering when he became the straight man in the act. Shaking her head for a moment, Raven frowned as she thought about what she knew about that Jujutsu from Naruto's stories. A. It allowed the use of fire, water, earth, wind, lightning, and even yin-yang chakra. B. It allowed the use of abilities that could control gravity to some extent. C. It allowed the ability to see chakra and invisible barriers. D. It gave them the ability to use the 6 paths ninjutsu, as well as the outer path ninjutsu, though those really creeped Raven out. E. It somehow allowed a person to control rain, much like the kind that was falling outside the cave at the moment. My exact words when I heard of it, it sounds scary. But when you look at them, they aren't scary, strange yes, kind of resemble a hypnotizing screen like Matt Mod used or something similar, but they don't look especially scary, or maybe that's just because of my feelings for Naruto. Raven thought to herself, then frowned as she looked at the blonde and contemplated how he could have possibly gained the fabled Jujutsu. Boy, food's done guys. Clone B suddenly called out with a grin, and Raven frowned as she looked down at Naruto for a moment more before moving over to eat, with Jinx casting worried glances over to the passed out blonde. Can't you use one of your healing spells to help wake him up or something? Jinx questioned of the violet-haired sorceress, and Raven pinched the bridge of her nose before sighing. No. Because there is nothing physically wrong with him, I can't just use a spell and magically wake him up. I actually think he's in some kind of meditative trance right now. And if we disturb him, chances are we'll do more damage than good. Raven replied while taking her food from Clone B and started to eat, and annoyed Jinx pouting. Then how do we know if he's really okay or not? Jinx reminded, and Clone B decided to give his 2 cents as he handed the rosette her food. Well, for one thing, if he were in any danger of dying, we'd have already popped out of existence. Clone B replied while Clone A grunted his agreement, then reached into Naruto's equipment pouch and pulled out a soldier pill. Boy, and I told myself I wouldn't eat these stupid things, but bottoms up. Clone A grumbled while tossing the pill into his mouth, only to grimace while Raven leaned over to Clone B. What did he just take? She questioned of the blonde clone, and Clone B grinned. It's called a high organ or military rations pill, more commonly called a soldier pill. It replenishes the chakra of whoever takes it, as well as their stamina, and allows them to go without food for 3 days and nights. Clone B replied, causing Jinx to gape at him in shock, and Raven to widen her eyes before a frown crossed Clone B's features. Unfortunately, sometimes overextensive use of the pills also cause paranoia and minor bouts of insanity. Clone B added and saw Clone A grunt as it flipped back to his feet, breathing out a sigh of relief, and glad to be back to full strength. So, does that mean that Sasuke guy ate a bunch of those things or what? Jinx asked while looking to the blonde, and Clone B snorted before snickering into his hand and grinning towards the girl. Pinching the bridge of his nose, Clone A wondered about his partner for a moment before looking out to the continuing rain and frowning. Whatever, at least I can still train Jinx now. Speaking of which, since it'd be a bit much to ask you to go out in this kind of weather, I'm teaching you how to cook today, Jinx. The clone decided with a nod of its head, and both Jinx and Raven turned to look at the clone strangely. Any particular reason why? Jinx questioned, and Clone A crossed his arms over his chest with a deep frown. In our group, and yes I mean Tartarus, besides myself, actually knows how to cook, and I mean something edible. Clone A questioned while remembering Blackfire and Will's attempts at cooking Blackfire's food was apparently good when compared to Starfire's, but that really wasn't saying much. And Gizmo had to dispose of Will's cooking because it was some kind of a biohazard. How she managed that even Gizmo didn't know. Donnie. Jinx replied with a nervous smile, and Clone A frowned deeply while giving the Rosetta look. The fact Donnie could cook had actually been a surprise, but she was actually very good at doing so. She did mention something about her bio dad having to learn to cook because his parents has actually brought food to life a couple times, but he decided to disregard that info, especially seeing as he couldn't believe anyone was capable of actually bringing food to life. My point exactly, which means you're going to learn how to cook so me and Donnie won't always have to. He replied flatly, and Raven smirked slightly, amused that only 2 people knew how to cook in all of Tartarus, and you don't have any room to give Jinx that look, Card-chan. You're just as bad a cook as Dwayla, and believe me when I say, that isn't a compliment. Clone A stated, and Raven winced while muttering under her breath for a moment, even as Clone B snickered lightly while he ate his own meal. Back with Naruto. The blonde was running his way to the final gate, narrowing his eyes when he saw how they'd been smashed down. Running past the gate, Naruto quickly slid to a halt when he saw that the stairs ended, a platform standing tall in the distance. Ugh, why me? Naruto wondered before blinking when he felt a drop of water hit his face. Looking up, Naruto then noticed dark storm clouds in the air, as they poured a drenching torrent of rain down on top of him. Why is it raining in my head? Naruto wondered for a moment before looking down to the bottomless drop, then up to the pillar in the distance. Now how am I going to? Naruto started to ask when the Kusanagi decided to give him a little advice. When the true path cannot be seen, perhaps a leap of faith is needed. The serpentine voice of the blade echoed out in Naruto's mind, the blonde-haired teen blinking before frowning deeply. Option A, listen to Kusanagi and possibly fall to my death. Option B, don't jump, allow the wolf to get away, and never find out what's at the top of this stupid tower thing. Naruto inwardly mused and frowned while taking a few steps back, then quickly jumped forward, only to land on a rising piece of earth that came rising up from the dark depths below. Okay, that was weird. Naruto mumbled before looking up and narrowing his eyes before running forward, more blocks rising to make a path for him as he approached the pillar in the center of the darkness. Upon coming to the pillar, Naruto ran onto its surface and slid to a halt. Finally, I make it to the top. I've already learned how to hate stairs thanks to this place. The blonde muttered under his breath before looking around, raising a brow when he noticed how odd the platform looked. At the center of it was a pool of water. A ripple pattern formed on the bottom of the pool, while the rain caused dozens of ripples to form on its surface. Around the pool of water is a ring of grassy terrain. 4 tall spikes also formed around the ring. While the Jubi no Akami was snarling angrily across from him. Smirking slightly, Naruto reached back and pulled the Kusanagi from his back as he glared towards the large 10-tailed bone armor-covered wolf. Alright dog breath, it's time for you to go. Naruto growled out while only half acknowledging the spiked bone armor that had formed over the length of his left arm. The Jubi snarled lightly before roaring loudly, slamming a paw into the ground, and causing numerous wooden planks to rise up to expand the platform around them, a swirl of lightning and wind spinning around them, as it then crouched down low to the ground. Lunging forward, Naruto lashed out with the Kusanagi, swinging the blade at the Jubi, only for it to flip over him and land on the water in the center of the platform. Growling low in his throat, the Jubi then lunged at Naruto instead, the blonde sliding to a halt and narrowing his eyes, as the Jubi jumped towards him. Twisting its tails forward, the Jubi formed 5 of them into mock fingers, making a mock hand that reached out to grab hold of Naruto. Rolling out of the way of the hand, Naruto then held up his left arm, as the Jubi lunged out of its tails and bit into the bone armor. Did you really think I'd fall for a stupid trick like that? Naruto quipped and then ducked and twisted around several of the Jubi's tails lashing out at him. Twisting on his heel, Naruto connected his foot to the side of Jubi's head, causing it to skip to the side, then jump up and right itself. Shaking its head, the Jubi roared out loudly before digging its paws into the ground, and then opened its mouth. As it did, numerous balls of raw chakra formed in the air, Naruto frowning as it then pulled them all together to form a large ball of purple chakra. Kakuho. The beast exclaimed as hundreds of balls of energy started flying towards the blonde-haired teen. Growling lightly as the dozens of spheres headed his way, Naruto twisted and turned around them. Then swung Kusanagi to start deflecting the orbs of raw chakra, before flipping back and landing in a low crouch. Damn it. Would you stop using me so recklessly? I may be indestructible, but those chakra bombs are still powerful. Kusanagi growled at the blonde-haired youth, Naruto merely rolling his eyes as he twisted the blade into a backhanded grip and shortened its blade down to ninjutsu length. My turn, dog breath. Naruto growled out while forming a phase 2 Rasen Shuriken in one hand, before quickly twisting around and throwing the jutsu straight towards the Jubi. Seeing the incoming attack, the Jubi's eyes widened before it then crouched down and glared at Naruto. Izanami. The beast exclaimed while teleporting out of the way of the Rasen Shuriken, causing it to explode with the outer wall of wind and lightning. The beast reappeared above Naruto and fell down towards him with a roar. Cursing lightly, Naruto ducked out of the way as it landed and then snarled while swinging its 10 tails at the blonde wildly. Grunting lightly, Naruto twisted and turned around the flailing tails of the Jubi before flipping back, evading a final swing from the Jubi's tails, and formed a ball of lightning in his left hand. Beat this. The blonde cried out while hurling the ball of lightning at the Jubi, nailing it directly in the face. Landing on his feet, Naruto then lunged at the Jubi, swinging the Kusanagi and slicing cleanly through its armor. Twisting on his heel as he did, the blonde kicked the Jubi in the muzzle, before flipping back to avoid a swing from one of its tails. Landing on his feet, Naruto then channeled wind chakra down to his feet and started to slide forward. Twisting on his heel, Naruto sliced through the Jubi's face with the wind at his feet. Jumping back as the Jubi retaliated with a swing of one of its tails, the blonde then lunged forward and kicked the Jubi with both feet. The attack sent the oversized wolf flying back into the air. Flipping in midair, the wolf landed on its feet and snarled while lunging at Naruto, only for the blonde to smirk as he twisted into a spinning kick, making a miniature tornado throw the beast back one more. Grunting lightly as he spun around, Naruto dug the Kusanagi into the ground to stop himself and narrowed his eyes. That was new. Jubi noted and Naruto inwardly agreed with the beast as he watched the Jubi get back to its feet. Yeah, blame Donnie and her little kick blast. It gave me the idea for that attack, and I kind of went overboard with it, though not only does it make me move faster, it also makes an effective offensive technique. Naruto inwardly explained while keeping his eyes trained onto the Jubi, as it then snarled before lifting up its head and breathed out a familiar dark mist. Amatsu Mikobashi. The Jubi exclaimed loudly, the dark mist covering everything and causing darkness to blind Naruto. Cursing under his breath, Naruto looked around, only for his eyes to widen when he could see the Jubi clear as day. No, he was seeing its chakra. What the hell? Naruto wondered to himself even as the Jubi saw him and lunged at him. Figured out later, that wolf looks hungry. The Kusanagi reminded and Naruto blinked before lunging out of the way of the Jubi while sliding to a halt. Lunging at the beast from behind, Naruto then twisted into a kick to the back of its head, sending it sprawling forward. Landing gracefully, the blonde then twisted Kusanagi around and swung it overhead, lengthening the blade and bringing it down on top of the Jubi. However, rather than slicing the beast open, it merely slammed down on top of it, while cutting cleanly through its spinal armor. Growling furiously, the Jubi wrapped its tails around the Kusanagi and slammed the blonde into the water at the center of the platform, while getting back up. Roaring out loudly, the beast then flipped back and howled into the air, causing the darkness around them to slowly dissipate. Groaning lightly, Naruto shook his head, droplets of water falling from his hair, when he then noticed his reflection in the water. His eyes widened upon seeing that a familiar pair of grave eyelid eyes had replaced his normally azure orbs. What the hell? He questioned quietly, while the Jubi formed another sphere of raw chakra before itself. Shaking his head, Naruto then turned to the Jubi as it bit down on the condensed sphere, causing it to crouch low as its body dug into the ground. Cursing lightly, Naruto managed to stand up just as the beast fired an Imari straight at him. Widening his eyes, Naruto quickly considered his options before looking to his hands and the incoming attack. Shit. Can't you do anything yourself? The Kusanagi demanded before growling lowly. Listen and listen good, we only have one shot at this. First you need to adhere to the ground by pushing chakra to the soles of your feet. Then, you'll have to feel the chakra flow through and channel it around you towards that blast. Then, you just hold on, and hope this works. Kusanagi ordered while Naruto shook his head and looked towards the incoming attack worriedly. I really hope this works. He thought to himself before forcing chakra into his eyes, and then down into his hands. Shinra Tensei. The blonde teen exclaimed, causing a circular field to form around him just as the Imari hit. Grinning evilly, the Jubi watched on, only for a snarl to form on its face, when it saw wide-eyed Naruto staring at a near-invisible barrier of gravity around himself. I really do have the Rinnegan, but how the hell do you know how to do that? Naruto wondered of the Kusanagi even as the gravity shield faded, and the Jubi lunged at him once more. Worry about that later, you really need to end this fight now. Kusanagi ordered angrily and Naruto mentally agreed with the sword, as he ducked out of the way of the Jubi and looked around. Think for a moment, you have the Rinnegan. Use it already. The sword ordered, and Naruto twitched while sliding back and shaking his head, droplets of water falling from his hair as the rain continued to fall. Looking around, an idea suddenly came to Naruto, and he concentrated on pushing wind chakra down to his arms, while the Jubi slid to a halt and lunged at him again. Grinning slightly, Naruto raised his arms, a freezing wind flowing along his arms, and freezing the falling rain into a pair of ice blades. Lashing out with them, Naruto slammed his left arm into the side of the Jubi's head, and then twisted around and punched it with its other arm. Excellent, use your environment to your advantage, the Kusanagi stated while Naruto twisted into a kick, freezing the rain on his right foot, and slamming it into the side of the Jubi's face yet again. Stumbling back, the beast shook its head while Naruto lunged at it and quickly jumped on its back. Alright, now we end this. The blonde-haired boy growled only to grunt as the Jubi twisted and thrashed in an attempt to shake him off. Grunting lightly as he held onto the beast's mane with one hand, Naruto held up the Kusanagi before plunging it down into the Jubi's head. Gritting his teeth, Naruto then slammed it down, extending the blade of the Kusanagi, and allowing it to rip downwards, straight through its head, and then out of its bottom jaw. The Jubi stilled instantly and fell down, Naruto breathing out a sigh of relief before blinking as purple-black chakra started flowing out of the Jubi's body. Well, that can't be good. The blonde-haired teen noted to himself only to grunt as the chakra made its way into his body. Groaning, Naruto fell down while the Jubi's body itself turned into purple-black chakra, the barrier around them doing so as well, before flowing inside of the blonde-haired teen. Gritting his teeth and gripping his skull, the blonde then cried out loudly, his body becoming surrounded by a black sphere of chakra. However, as the sphere of chakra vanished, it revealed the black and red-orange Jubi that Naruto's body had become. Blinking for a moment, even as the rain continued to pelt him, the new Akami shook itself off and then looked around in confusion. Okay, that felt really weird, he noted before walking over to the pool of water and looked down at himself, only to look at what he turned into in shock. Crap. I'm a wolf. Wait, how do I change back? Naruto wondered and heard the Kusanagi snicker to itself for a few moments. Be calm, master, I believe that all shall be well soon enough. However, while you're in this form, why not give a good little victory howl? The Kusanagi offered, and Naruto blinked at the victory howl's suggestion, before looking back to his altered appearance in the pool of water. Well, I guess it couldn't hurt anything, Naruto admitted before spreading his paws and snarling in his throat as he threw his head back and let loose a loud howl into the air. Blinking, Naruto then felt the rain slowly stop, the clouds parting to reveal the moon from before hanging above, and twitched as chakra flowed over his form, changing him back to his original shape soon after. Well, that was certainly interesting if nothing else, Naruto mused to himself while looking up to the full moon when a thought came to him. The Jubi is said to have been sealed in the moon. Is this supposed to mean something? The blonde wondered to himself while cupping his chin in thought, the Kusanagi chuckling lightly as he did. Indeed, it was quite interesting, master, though I must admit that I do hope you'll howl more often. You have such a lovely singing voice, and it would be a shame if you didn't use it often, the Kusanagi quipped dryly while Naruto shook his head and walked over to the edge of the platform and looked out into the darkness around it. You two can come out, I know you're there, Naruto stated flatly while crossing his arms over his chest, then turned around to see Itachi in pain walking towards him. I'd normally want to know how the hell pain got in my head, but considering I just changed into a 10-tailed wolf not but a scant few seconds ago, I'm going to just skip it and ask what the hell is going on around here, Naruto stated in a low tone, his Rinnegan eyes narrowed on the two, and Pain walked forward, the shadows flowing away from his body. Please, my name is no longer Pain, call me Nagato instead, Pain requested while Naruto couldn't help but notice that Nagato had the same fair skin and shade of deep crimson hair as his mother had. Simply put, someone brought me here. But as for the Rinnegan, I believe that it's naturally yours, Nagato replied curtly, and the blonde-haired boy looked over to where the Jubi had been only a few moments before. Alright, then what was up with that Jubi thing I just turned into? Naruto questioned of the two flatly while tapping his foot lightly on the floor. That I can't truly explain, however that is not the point of this visit, Nagato replied while Itachi walked over to the side and sat down, closing his eyes and sighing as he waited for the two to finish. From what I've managed to learn, it would seem a great threat is coming to this new world, Nagato states, and Naruto rolled his eyes while wondering what else was new. If you mean Slade, well maybe I could use that soul extraction thing you had on him without feeling bad, especially considering he stripped Kara-chan down to near no clothes. Naruto mumbled to himself with a slight grin, though growled as he remembered the state he'd found the girl in. Can grow back without a soul, he mused to himself, and Nagato shook his head for a moment before poking the blonde's forehead to get his attention back on him. No, not the man in the mask. I sensed something far more ominous at work. Slade could not have come back without some kind of help, Nagato reminded the blonde, and Naruto frowned, remembering Raven's talks about her father, aka Trigun the Terrible. Oh yeah, him, Naruto grumbled out under his breath while Nagato walked over and stood beside of the blonde-haired teen. So I take it this visit has something to do with Kara-chan's old man, Naruto asked the scarlet-haired man with the raised brow, and Nagato nodded his head silently. Indeed it does, Nagato replied, and Naruto looked at the man for a moment before sighing tiredly. So, any words of wisdom or advice you want to give me? Naruto asked the man, and Nagato turned his head slightly, a familiar smile on his lips. Remember Jiraiya-sensei's teachings as you did before. Remember the words that you told me, and that hatred can never bring peace. Nagato replied curtly, and Naruto frowned darkly while glaring at the man. In case you've forgotten, between the two of us, you're the only one who ever forget Iro-sanin's teachings. I never killed anyone, unless I absolutely had to. Naruto reminded the scarlet-haired man, and Nagato nodded his head slowly. Perhaps, but I do have some other words of wisdom for you. Nagato then stated while walking forward and gave the blonde-haired teen a dead serious look. Cherish your friends while you still can, because you never know when you could lose them. Nagato replied softly, his voice carrying the weight of his experience on that particular matter, and Naruto blinked before rolling his eyes. I already knew that. But speaking of friends, I really need to go make sure two haven't killed each other yet. Naruto replied with a smirk as he walked towards the pool of water, slowly fading away until he vanished without a trace once he reached it. Looking over to Nagato, Itachi then crossed his arms over his chest. I wonder if he can really manage to master the powers of the Rinnegan in time. Itachi said mostly to himself, and Nagato looked over to the dead Uchiha for only a moment, before turning his back to him and looking out to the darkness. He need not master them all too quickly, Itachi, he has a power within him that is all his own now. Nagato replied curtly, and Itachi looked over to the man for a moment before standing up and holding out one arm, a familiar raven appearing and landing on his outstretched arm. It seems we had someone witness Naruto-kun's transformation, Leader Sama. Itachi noted as the raven vanished in a plume of smoke, and Nagato silently looked to the moon hanging overhead. Really now? Nagato questioned of the dark-haired man, and Itachi raised a brow while looking at his former leader. You don't sound surprised. Itachi noted, and a slight smile worked its way onto Nagato's face, as he looked back to the dark-haired man. This world isn't small like our own, is Itachi, but his people are far more numerous than ours ever were. The chances that no one would have seen him in that state are nearly slim to none. Nagato stated while Itachi walked over to the former leader of Akatsuki and then looked out into the darkness. It would seem your time here is running out. Itachi noted while looking to see Nagato's feet were fading out of existence. Yes, I'll soon return to my friends. Nagato replied before turning to look at Itachi with a serious expression on his face. Do take care of Naruto, Itachi, though he doesn't wish it, he will be needed for the coming war. Nagato ordered even as he faded away completely, leaving the dead Uchiha standing alone. Closing his eyes, Itachi turned on his heel and made his way towards the stairs down. As you wish, Leader Sama. Itachi replied to no one before his body changed into a murder of crows that quickly flew down into the depths of the strange tower. Force. Naruto's eyes slowly opened, and the blonde groaned while slowly sitting up and reached up to rub his head. Oi, I really don't want to go and do that again. Naruto mumbled to himself, only to grunt as Jinx pounced on him with a hug. However, when she did, the clones got a clear view of Naruto's eyes, Clone B gaping in shock, while Clone A frowned for a moment. You're okay? The pink-haired girl said happily, and Naruto grinned nervously, well aware of Raven's jealousy-driven temper problems, Raven twitching to the side as she glared at the rosette. Don't kill her yet, she's just happy to see he's okay. If she holds onto him like that for more than 3 more seconds, you can rip her spine out. Raven thought to herself as her eyes started to turn red, and Naruto wisely pushed Jinx off of himself to save her from the wrath of his girlfriend. Boy, Kara-chan, you're looking well. How has your training been going for you? Naruto asked the violet-haired sorceress quickly, and Raven sighed, and then stared at his Rinnegan eyes for a moment before answering. Fine. She offered dryly while Jinx grabbed Naruto's face and stared into his eyes for a moment. Growling when she did, Raven glared at the rosette's back angrily, even as she tried to restrain herself, lest she caused the cave to crush them all. What happened to your eyes? Jinx asked the blonde, and Raven blinked, her anger ebbing, while Naruto winced slightly. Now that's kind of hard to explain, Jinx, but suffice it to say, things are going to be a lot more interesting from now on. Naruto offered the girl, and she pouted for a moment, only for Naruto to look to his clones and smirk. Alright boys, how has their training been going thus far? Naruto asked, and Clone A decided to give his report first, and not worry about the Rinnegan eyes staring at him. Jinx has only made a little progress with tracking, clearly it's not her thing, but she is better at cooking than most of the others. Clone A reported in, and Naruto nodded his head, glad that he or Donnie wouldn't have to cook the majority of the team's meals when they didn't order out. Good. And how has Kara-chan's training gone? Naruto then asked, and Clone B shook his head, still gaping in shock at the Rinnegan eyes he was seeing. A minimal, she's really not built for physical work, but she's managed a few things. Clone B replied, and a frown crossed Naruto's lips as he wondered how he was going to fix that. But, can I ask how you have the Rinnegan? Clone B then questioned, and Jinx blinked for a moment when she heard that word. Samsara, as in the cycle of reincarnation. Jinx asked with an arched brow, and both Naruto and his clones nodded their heads. What do they do then? Jinx asked, and Naruto scratched his cheek for a moment while trying to think of a way to explain the Rinnegan that wouldn't freak the pink cat out. Besides reviving the dead, controlling gravity, rain, granting the ability to control the elements, create life, and use any of the jutsu that exist in his world. Raven asked flatly while watching the two, Jinx gaping as she turned to Raven, Naruto giving her an annoyed look in response. You can't be serious. Jinx stated while looking at her violet-haired rival, and Raven looked at Jinx and stared at her in the eyes. I'm dead serious. The girl replied, and Jinx's head snapped around to Naruto as he muttered under his breath. You can revive the dead? She demanded, and Naruto rolled his eyes. No. I don't know how to do that kind of thing. And even without these eyes there were always jutsu that reanimated corpses back home. Hell, Orochimaru used one of them on more than one occasion. Naruto responded, causing Jinx to gape for a moment before shivering violently when she remembered the snake-like man. Then what about all the other stuff? Jinx asked, and Naruto sighed before looking to where it was raining outside and narrowed his eyes. Holding out a hand, Naruto felt some of his chakra hanging in the air and pulled it all back into himself. When he did, the clouds slowly began to fade, the rain slowing, until finally they vanished completely, and the blonde looked back to a gaping Jinx. Oh. Jinx said demurely as she stared at him for a few more moments. Yeah, the rain thing is actually just my chakra flowing into the air and then stimulating cloud growth. Not sure how some actually got into the air, but at least I know that trick isn't too hard to use now. Naruto admitted while Clone A grunted a mendakus under his breath, and Clone B shivered for a moment. Anyways, are you going to be okay, Jinx? Naruto then asked his best female friend with a worried look, and she slowly blinked her eyes before nodding her head and grinning nervously. Yeah, well, you certainly live up to the name Tempest now, huh? Jinx noted with a nervous chuckle, and Naruto nodded his head in agreement with her. So, what do we do now? She then asked, and Naruto considered that for a moment before looking to his hands with a frown. The clones are going to keep training you too. I've got to train to use the Rinnegan properly, and preferably somewhere far away from anyone I might hurt as I do. Naruto replied with a nervous grin, Raven inwardly agreeing as she could only guess how much damage learning to properly control gravity was going to cause him. Are you sure, Temp? I mean, you could always help me or Raven with our training. Jinx reminded, and the blonde-haired ex-shinobi nodded his head before crossing his arms. Yes, I could, but I came out here to train as well. Naruto reminded while getting back to his feet, and looked to Clone A and B and grinned. Keep up the good work, boys. I'll see you guys again in a few days. Naruto told the clones as he walked out of the cave and then sighed while summoning the Kusanagi, grunting when it ripped through the flesh of his hand. Damn it, why does that still hurt? Naruto wondered aloud and heard Kusanagi chuckle slightly for a moment. Oh, shut up. Now then, we need to talk about how you know how to use the Rinnegan's abilities in jutsu. Naruto growled at the sword as he walked into the forest, the Kusanagi groaning as he did so. Days later. A pizza rests on the table of the Teen Titans kitchen when someone uses one of Nightwing's old Robin bird earrings to cut out a slice. Do you desire another slice of the cheese, Robin? Starfire questioned with a smile on her face, still dressed up like Robin as she hands the slice of pizza over to Beast Boy. Don't mind if I do, Robin. Beast Boy replies while holding out a plate for Starfire to put the pizza on. He then pulled a bow staff from his belt and allowed it to flow out before pushing the box of pizza across the table towards Cyborg. Care for another one, Robin? Beast Boy asked the titanium teen with a raised brow, and his friend started to rub his hands together with a grin. Don't mind if I do, Robin. The titanium teen replied while taking out the rest of the pizza and started munching on it. Next to the titanium teen is Kid Flash, and the speedster is snickering to himself as he watches the three act as Robin. Nearby is a familiar little slug named Silky, Starfire's pet, who has been dressed up in a tiny cape and even a mask of its own. I still can't believe they got you to dress up too. I mean, come on, you of all people. Kid Flash snickered out to Donna as she sat next to Kid Flash, feet propped up on the table and arms behind the sofa. Strangely, the Amazon is also dressed in Robin's clothes, however unlike the others, she seems to fill the old costume out almost perfectly. You know Robin's. Donna started while Kid Flash shook his head and leaned back with a smirk when he saw someone walking up behind them. I have to admit the mask makes me feel cool. Donna said with a slight blush, a familiar teen in black and blue standing behind the Amazon, causing the other Titans to pale. What? Donna asked before grimacing at the wide grin on Kid Flash's face, turned around, and then ducked over to the others when she saw Nightwing. Hiding behind the others and looking at Nightwing with wide eyes, expecting him to yell, she and the other Titans are confused when the black-clad teen smiles. Hey pizza, sweet. The teen said while moving over the back of the sofa to sit down and grabbed a slice of pizza. Taking a bite out of the pizza, and savoring the looks on his friends' faces for a moment, Nightwing then swallows as he gives them an amused look. You know, Robins. The mask makes me feel cool too. Nightwing admits while taking another bite out of his pizza, causing Kid Flash to fall over laughing, while the others merely fell over in shock. Do I even want to know why we have a Robin convention going on in our living room? Raven asked as she walked into the room, reading a book with a frown on her face. Grinning to himself, Kid Flash sat up and looked to the returning gray-skinned girl. Yo Raven, man, you missed out. Everyone was dressed up like Robin over here, and even started playing with all his old stuff. Kid Flash said while pointing his thumb over to Nightwing as he continued to eat his pizza, Raven shaking her head as she walked over and sat down with her book. Seeing the girl sit down, Nightwing smirked while leaning back in his seat and propping his feet up on the table. So guys, did anything interesting happen around here while I was gone? Nightwing questioned of his two friends, and a sly smirk crossed Raven's features as she continued to read her book silently. No, not really. Raven replied as she leaned back in her seat, lightly tapping one of the gems on her chain belt, where Naruto had placed a Horatian seal before they had returned to the city. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.